Hey Watch Hobbyists, I hope you're doing well. I'm Wayne, I'm from the Watch Hobbyist channel on YouTube, and I've got a bit of a different review for you today. So recently I came across this watch. It's by Evant Watches. It's inside here. I'm going to show you in a second. I'm also going to compare it to some others like Seiko's because it's in that sort of price range. But basically the watch caught my eye because of its dial, which I'll show you soon. I found it on a site called Nomon Watches. I believe at this point they have a few left. I'm not sure how many. I know that stocks are getting low. They've only made 300 of these watches, so I hope that I don't just give you some clickbait here because you can't get them anymore. But at the same time, it's really nice to show you something different, I think, as well on my channel, rather than the usual Rolexes or whatever. I want to sort of keep some diversity there. So really good company, really good price. I got a free extra strap because I was within the first 100 orders, and just seems like really good service. I mean, you know, sometimes when I order here in the UK I get annoyed with the service. With this, it was a company in the USA that still managed to get a watch to me within 3 days, so I was really impressed with that. It was really good quality, fast shipping and everything, so I definitely recommend these guys. The watch itself comes in a really cool package actually. I didn't expect it to come like this. I have seen it with sort of micro brands in the past where their packaging can be better than high end, and this is definitely the case to a degree because we've got a nice wooden box, really nice solid box. I must admit that the watch was sort of dangling around in the box a little bit. It came inside some like bubble wrap, but there was no damage to it, so it was fine. It's just that it could have been secured maybe a little bit better. But if we open up the box, this is what we get. So I was really impressed because of the whole way it's packaged, the whole way it's sort of displayed. You have here a warranty card. You also have here like an instruction manual. On the other side it goes into detail about the movement, how to set it. So if you are new to watches, that will obviously come in handy. If you're not new, then you probably won't need it, but it's still nicer than just some crappy little bit of paper just hanging around inside the box. Watch itself I will show you in a second. I just want to show you what it also comes with. So as for the standard package, you would get 3 straps with the watch. The strap that's on the watch currently is my own strap. I'm going to show you that in a moment as well. But you get this brown sort of suede-y, leathery type of strap, which is really just a nice colour for the dial. They've really, I think you can tell they've really spent some time picking the colours of the straps because they all match the watch absolutely perfectly. So this is like a brown strap. Sorry about the lighting here today, we've got some sunshine going behind the clouds. This is like a sort of turquoisey colour strap. Which is not normally a colour I would pick, but actually I've put it against the watch and I think it looks really good. So I can totally see why they've gone for that as well. If I just pull that back, you can see it's sort of a nice matte leather finish. Just works really well. Then this was a free strap because I was within the first 100 orders, I think, something like that. So it's like a sandy beigey colour. And again works really well because the indices are sort of a coloured effect on the dial of the watch, which I will show you. And then it also came on this NATO strap. Now the NATO, it's not a bad NATO actually, I just don't think that black is the ideal colour for this watch. This probably comes with the other models that they've done in the past. I think a blue NATO would look a lot better. So I took this off straight away because this is actually what the watch comes fitted with. It does have the Evant logo. I don't know if I can get that to show, but the Evant logo is actually on the buckle itself, and it's a really nice quality buckle. That you know, it's not going to go anywhere. It feels really solid. The only thing is that you do have to obviously remove the buckle to fit it to these straps. These straps, the extra straps, don't come with a separate buckle, so you have to remove it. But it's not got the holes in the side, so you're not just going to be able to sort of stick a pin bar tool in there. You would either have to sort of faff about and get the spring out of there, which is quite a solid material, that NATO, or you would just buy some extra buckles and put them on those straps. So just be aware of that. By the looks of it, I think it's a 20mm strap, so you know, you just get a 20mm buckle off eBay or your local store that you buy your watch straps from, and then away you go. So you know, that's how you would do that. Now onto the watch at last. I know it's taken a while to get there, but I wanted to show you the packaging, and here we go. So what caught my eye with this watch was first of all the Fume dial. Now they've done this model before with like a black dial, I believe, but the Fume dial here, first of all, I always love a blue dial over a black dial for the most part. Seems to just be the dial colour of choice that I love. You'll know I bought the D Blue recently, and also one of the other watches I'm going to compare it to soon, you'll see has a blue dial as well. The Fume dial basically means where it's like a gradient, but it's not a sharp gradient, it's sort of very, very soft from a very dark blue on the outer edge into a lighter blue in the middle. And you get all these different effects as you turn the watch, especially if you've got some sunlight. Unfortunately the sun's gone in properly at the moment, but you can really sort of see there's a lot of different effects going on with the dial. It's also a sunburst effect, so when you do adjust the watch in the daylight you're wearing it, you get some really playful details of the dial. You can see the sunburst, but it also just, you know, changes colour, and you have these really large indices. Now some people will like it and some people don't seem to like it, which is fair enough, but for me I like something that looks different. And what I find is that I really think these micro brands are coming up with the way to be unique with your watches now. You know, it seems to be I'm not saying everybody, but it seems to be loads of people out there have obviously Rolex Submariners and watches like that. I'm no different. I love those watches, but you know, you walk around the street and you see one, whereas there's only ever been 300 made. That's all that will ever be made, so you're probably not going to see another one walking down the street. And that's what's nice. If you're like me and you like unique things and limited things, you know, and especially at this price point, it gives you a great opportunity to have that. So I think that's part of the appeal for me. But also, I have seen some of these micro brand watches where they're not very well executed. They look great in the pictures, they sound great on paper, but when you actually get them in your hands, you know, there's a lot left to be desired, basically. Whereas this watch, I really don't feel it is like that. I think they've put an awful lot of attention to detail in here. You've got polished case going on, which is always a nice thing. It adds a little bit of dressiness to it. The bezel, I only know from the company that I bought it from, their website, how it all works. So they basically intended to have a Bakelite bezel, because this watch resembles another watch from many, many years ago from Breguet. And so that's another thing that's nice about it. It's not resembling some Rolex that everybody knows. Even though it's an homage to an old watch, it's a watch that most people don't even know about. But it is a Breguet diver from many, many years ago, and that had a Bakelite bezel. And from the looks of the pictures that I've seen, it also had some luminescence within the bezel. So they have actually tried to keep that feature, and as a result, this bezel is not Bakelite but ceramic, but it does have a Bakelite effect. Now, if you've never seen Bakelite, it's an old type of plastic, and it just has a real sort of power gloss to it. If you ever see anything Bakelite, you can tell straight away that it's not your average plastic. It is a proper sort of glossy scenario going on, and it's no different with this. It's a really nice effect, but of course, being ceramic, it's actually probably really tough as well. I've not tried it and tested it, but it is really tough. The only thing I have noticed with the bezel is there does seem to be a little bit of tolerance between the edge of the ceramic and the edge of the steel that you grip onto, and therefore a few sort of clothes hairs have got caught in it. I've had to pull them out, so there might be just a little bit of gap there that just will allow you to catch your clothes hairs and things, and you might just find that might just be me, I don't know, but it's not something I've noticed on other watches, but I did notice it on this. So the bezel itself though, and I have tested this in water to try it out, is actually very grippy. It's not the grippiest bezel ever, but it's grippy enough. And if you were going to use this as a dive watch, because it is 300 meters water resistant, I really don't think you would have many issues. You have the large indices to back it all up as well. They are totally coated in BGW9 lume, which is like a sort of very bluey turquoisey colour. And it's like a real aqua colour. It looks fantastic, and the actual power of the lume is easily as good as any of my Seikos, and that is saying something. It's very rare that you get a watch that beats a Seiko in terms of its luminescence, but this, having the huge indices, the large amount of fill on the hands as well, and then also around the bezel, It's a really powerful setup for Lume. It's really bright, looks really good, and it lasts all the way through the night, no problem. So if you wake up at sort of 4 in the morning, you want to check the time on your watch, no issues at all. Back to the bezel, it does have a nice click, I should have mentioned, and mine is lining up nicely with the 12 marker as well. You can't actually always tell if it is though, because it has this really cool domed crystal. Now, I've seen domed crystals on cheaper watches and they sometimes distort to the point where it looks ugly, whereas this watch has a very linear distortion, so it's a very well made crystal. It's no cheap crystal this, it is sapphire, so it's tough. It has an anti-reflective coating definitely on the underside, I think, because although it looks reflective here, I've used it in the brightest of sunlight and still been able to read the time without too many issues at all. So I don't think they've coated the top of it, which is quite common to not do that on divers' watches, but I would imagine that there is some coating going on the underside. If there was coating on the top, obviously you can scratch it. Being a diver's watch, it's at risk to being scratched more, so people tend to it tends to be avoided with that type of thing on a diver's watch. But the reflections, like I say, are kept down to a minimum. It looks better in reality than it probably does on this camera right now. The crown is nice and big, so you can grab that really easily. It has a nice unscrew sort of thread, but then when you go to screw it back in, I have noticed a little bit of resistance at first, and then it just sort of allows me to screw it down. But it's got quite a long thread. I would never be worried about taking this properly underwater and diving. This is a watch that, although it's very limited and going to be quite rare, it's still a very usable sort of dive watch without a doubt. So let's give you some measurements. I have the world's worst vernier thing for £6 off Amazon, but it gives us a good idea. And if I just do this, I mean the dimensions are actually all on the website anyway, but I'll give you them in the review. So we've got in the region of sort of 47.5mm to 48mm. Remember, these are not the most accurate ones ever, but I would say, yeah, under 48mm makes sense for the lug to lug. The height itself is 14 or so mils, which is really good. You know, I mean, 14 is really nice. The lugs and the sort of the width of the bezel though do lend to a sort of quite thick, barrel-y look to the watch. There's no getting away from that. But when I had the NATO on out of the box, the NATO actually manages to hide some of this height here. I think this is more where you notice the height of the watch. So you can't really get away with that with the design, because the bezel isn't thick enough to take away, take your eyes to a different part of the watch, and the lugs really do taper down very quickly. So either the lugs just needed a little bit more lug to lug length maybe, but then the whole character of the watch is how it looks, and I think they've got the design really spot on in my opinion. In terms of diameter, I think it's 41mm, so yeah, just more or less 41mm there. So actually, a really nice size for 2017, not oversized or anything like that. It's on my Tropic strap here, so this is a vintage Tropic strap, which I just thought suited it really well. Plus it's called the Tropic Diver, so kind of works well in terms of the name as well. The movement inside is pretty good actually. ETA 2824, so alright, it's a base ETA, it's not going to win any awards, but this one has been running around about plus 5 seconds per day when I've timed it, so I'm more than happy with that. Really, that's absolutely within the standards of most watches these days, so more than good enough. Yours may be better or worse, I don't know, but certainly I would expect it to be around that. So it's no rubbish movement at all, and that's one thing I was amazed about actually, is to have an ETA at this price point. Really unusual. I mean, at the end of the day, an ETA movement is not a cheap thing, especially nowadays. And the other thing as well, I mean, this is a 28,800 beats per hour movement. It's not a 21,000 or whatever, which I believe my Seiko is here. I've not actually looked it up, but I'm pretty sure this is a sort of 21,000 movement. Now, it's different. It's still an automatic, has a day date. That's good for me. I prefer having a day sometimes as well. And this also has a sunburst dial, so I think it's quite a comparable type of watch. It's got a vintage look to it, and a similar price point as well. I think it's more or less the same for the most part of the world anyway. But I've noticed less accuracy on this watch versus this watch, and also if you hold them together, I mean, they're both on similar weighted straps. The weight of this is much heavier. It just has to feel more quality because it's heavier. We have a ceramic bezel, we have a sapphire crystal on here, we have the ETA movement, which is an outsourced movement. Of course, it's not like you would find with Seikos. They come with their own movements, but that should mean it's even more expensive. So the price point that they managed to make this at is really quite remarkable in my opinion. The other watches I have in this sort of price range are, I mean, we have a Seiko Kinetic here, which is a kind of quartz movement, and then we have a full-on quartz movement here with the Inox from Victorinox. Now this is a slightly cheaper watch, I think, than this one, but it's not too far off, and you've got a cool chunky sort of durable watch, quartz movement watch, and the polishing on this I still say is one of the best types of polishing I have ever seen on any watch on this Victorinox. But at the same time, it's a quartz watch versus a full-on automatic mechanical movement watch that's limited to 300 worldwide and will never be produced again. So, you know, for me, I think that's what I like so much about this watch. It's the exclusivity and the price point, the materials involved, the look of the dial. I like that you have a date. I know some people don't. For those who haven't been able to tell on other pictures, like I couldn't when I first went to buy this, the indices and the hands are actually sort of a rose gold colour. So that, again, may not be for everybody, but I think it's really good because it just breaks up the dial a bit. I think if they were sort of a silver colour, it just maybe look a little bit more bland, but I think it works really well having the gold colour. I've actually possibly got another watch coming in, which is a much more expensive watch with a very similar colour scheme from a very high-end manufacturer. So it's, you know, it's not that it hasn't been seen before, but I think it just works really well at this price point. It's very unusual, the whole watch. 300 meters water resistant. You have all sorts of details on the back that you would expect to see, including sapphire crystal. Shows little man diving there as well. And, you know, that's what it is. It is a usable, true diver's watch. So again, I bought mine from No More Watches, which I would thoroughly recommend. Really good piece. I don't know how many are left, but if you are thinking of it, then make sure you get one as quick as possible, because I would hate for you to miss out on one if you do want it. Thanks for watching. Please make sure you give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Please make sure you subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you again soon.